Hey, Ron here. This is my artist review of the Redmi Pad 2 Pro released in September 2025. And this is the Redmi Smart Pen, which is sold separately. First of all, disclaimer, this is not a review unit. I have purchased the tablet and pen for review purposes. So in this video, I'll just present to you my findings so that you can decide whether this is worth the money. And this video is going to be quite long, so if you want to save time, you can check out the text review that I have already written on my blog. The link is in the video description below. Here in Singapore, you can find the tablets on Shopee SG, and if you click through my Shopee links, you can get a 30% Shopee voucher that can get you 100 Singapore dollars off the listed price. Several months ago, I had reviewed the Redmi Pad 2, which is a pretty good budget tablet. The Redmi Pad 2 Pro is even better, and it's still considered a budget tablet. So what are the differences? The display is bigger, so this is a 12.1-inch display versus 11-inch. The processor is the Snapdragon 7S Gen 4, which is much better compared to the Redmi Pad 2's Helio G100 Ultra. And also the battery life here is much longer. One downside is, for some reason, the Pro model does not have cellular option, even though there is a micro SD card slot. Let's look at the prices, and these are in Singapore dollars. So the Pad 2 comes with a flip case, and the Pad 2 Pro comes with a keyboard case. So for the Pad 2, if you get the model with 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, it's just 219 Singapore dollars. Not including the Redmi Smart Pen, which is around 50 Singapore dollars, which is quite affordable. So this is a really affordable option for a budget tablet that is quite good. But I would highly recommend you spend a bit more, like 30 Singapore dollars more, to get 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. And you can add another 30 Singapore dollars to get the cellular option. And after you add everything, this is still a lower price compared to the Pad 2 Pro with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. And this is just a Wi-Fi model. So this is 319 Singapore dollars. Noticeably more expensive compared to the Pad 2, but still considered a budget option when compared to other tablets from other companies. And if you want to get more RAM, 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of internal storage, the price increases quite significantly to 449 Singapore dollars. Right, as usual, let me give you the bottom line up front. The Redmi Pad 2 Pro has a bright, vibrant and sharp display with auto brightness that works really well, and refresh rate is up to 120 Hz, so the overall performance looks and feels smooth. Audio quality from the four-way speakers is good, and there is even a 3.5mm audio jack. Battery capacity is 12,000 mAh, and the battery life is amazing. The pen works well enough for writing, but for drawing, there are several issues. Initial activation force is slow, but when you try to draw thin lines, there is this little dot at the start of the line. So this is a potential deal breaker, and this affects apps such as MiniBank Paint, Infinite Painter, and Clip Studio Paint. Sketchbook has this issue with tapering strokes, so there is this shoelace effect, and that problem also happens with Krita. Yep, this is definitely a deal breaker if you use those two apps. Drawing apps that work well on this tablet are Concepts, which is the app that I'm using now, HyPaint, and IBIS Paint X. Palm rejection works better with note-taking apps than with drawing apps. So sometimes while drawing, when I have my palm on the display like this, it would activate double tap undo, or in this case, I have set the finger action to select, and this can happen. The selection mode would activate again unintentionally, so that can be quite irritating when drawing. And with this pen, I have a very high tendency of clicking the side buttons unintentionally. So those are the main pros and cons. Now, if you're using this tablet as a general purpose tablet, this provides terrific value for money. In fact, the Redmi Pad 2 Non-Pro provides even more value for money because of the much lower price point. The advantage with the Pro model is the better processor, which allows you to play more graphics intensive games. And if you don't play games, I would actually recommend you go with the Redmi Pad 2 Non-Pro, because for the same price or lower, you can actually get more RAM and more storage, and the overall performance still feels quite smooth. Now, for note-taking, this tablet still works well because the writing performance seems fine to me. But for drawing, well, there are only a number of apps that work well with the pen, namely Concepts, HyPaint, and IBIS Paint X. So if you use other drawing apps with the line taper problems or the dot at the start of the line, those are going to be deal breakers. But for casual drawing or sketching with Concepts, IBIS Paint X, HyPaint, I actually do not have any issues. And now let's move on to the full review. Let's take a look at the items included with the purchase. So I had bought the tablet with the pen bundle, but usually the pen is sold separately. In the box for the tablet, you get, well, the tablet, the 3-watt charger, SIM ejector, a USB-A to USB-C charging cable, warranty info card, and quick start guide. And in the box for the pen, you get the pen, warranty card, quick start guide, and one replacement pen tip. And this replacement pen tip that I have here is squashed. It's not a perfect cone. And I didn't realize before that this plastic here for the tip is that soft. Let's take a closer look at the design of this tablet, which looks good, but it looks kind of generic like most tablets nowadays. The bezels are quite thin on the 4 sides. Corners are rounded off, including the corners for the LCD. This is an 8 megapixel landscape camera. Face unlock and auto brightness work well. On this side, we have 2 speakers and 2 more on the other side. The audio is loud, clear enough, does not sound too hollow, thankfully, and there is decent stereo. The audio quality is certainly not as good compared to more expensive tablets, but for a budget tablet, it's very good. That's the power button, and there is no fingerprint scanner. And here we have the volume control. I believe these holes are mics, if I'm not wrong. That's the micro SD card slot. Now this tablet is Wi-Fi only, and there is no cellular option available. I am very surprised to find a 3.5mm audio jack on this tablet. And that's the USB-C port with USB 2 transfer speed, and charging speed is up to 33 watt. On this side, there is nothing, and there are no pogo pin connectors on this tablet, so I believe the keyboard case is using Bluetooth, if I am not wrong, but I don't have the keyboard case to show you guys, unfortunately. And here we have an 8 megapixel f2 camera, and this is a flash that looks like a camera lens but is actually a flash. The camera bump is not too thick, but if you place this tablet on the table without a case, the tablet will still wobble. The weight of this tablet is 610 grams, which is considered reasonable for a 12.1-inch tablet. The thickness is 7.5mm, which is kind of thick when you compare it with other tablets. But with this thickness, Redmi or Xiaomi has managed to put a huge battery inside, one with 12,000 mAh battery capacity. There are 3 color options. This is silver, and there is graphite gray and lavender, and this is matte textured metal on the back. Let's talk about this display. The resolution is 2560 by 1600, so the aspect ratio is 16 by 10. Pixel density is 249 ppi, so visuals look sharp without pixelation. Refresh rate is up to 120 Hz, so animation for pan, scroll, zoom and rotate will look really smooth. Typical brightness is 500 nits and high brightness mode is up to 600 nits. According to Xiaomi, this LCD can produce up to 1 billion colors, and the color quality does look good to me. For an LCD, contrast looks good, although not as good compared to OLED displays, but those tablets with OLED displays will be noticeably more expensive. So this is actually quite a good quality LCD. There is some IPS glow, but it's not too bad. And also the viewing angles, as you can see, is pretty good. When viewing the display from extreme angles, there is minimal color shift and minimal drop in brightness. One downside to this display is it's really reflective. So if you are using this outdoors, well, the reflections can be quite glaring. Let's talk about the OS and some software features. So this tablet runs on Xiaomi HyperOS version 2 on top of Android 15, and there is official support for Google Play Store. According to the Xiaomi website, this tablet will only get security updates until 2029, which is very weird because the Redmi Pad 2 non-Pro will get security updates until 2032, 3 more years than the Pro tablet. If you set up this tablet from fresh, you will see some bloatware and you can uninstall those apps, thankfully. One thing I don't quite like about some of the Xiaomi apps is some of them are ad supported, such as the file browser. So now when I launch the file browser, I do not see an ad, which is good. But after a period of inactivity and you launch the file browser, it may show you an ad. But it's not as bad compared to Huawei tablets that show ads quite frequently. Xiaomi OS may not have as many features compared to Samsung, but if you need more features, you can always find an app from Google Play Store to get you the feature that you want. There is split screen mode, of course, and there is raise to wake, double tap to wake or sleep. There is also tap to select. There is raise to wake, and that's how fast the face unlock is. And on the lock screen, you can double tap to wake or sleep. But this feature is not available on the home screen for some reason. There is split screen mode, and it's quite easy to use. Just tap on the 3 buttons there and open another app. There is no PC mode or desktop mode. The Xiaomi File Manager does not support direct integration with Google Drive and Microsoft OneDrive. There are several backup options, so you can choose to create a backup in this tablet and transfer that backup out, preferably using cloud because the USB-C port here is kind of slow. Or you can connect this tablet to a computer to back up the tablet, or you can use Xiaomi Cloud or Google Cloud. But I'm not sure if the backup options here will actually back up the whole tablet because some of the apps, for example, Infinity Painter, will actually save the files within the Android data folder, which is not accessible by users. So some of those files within the Android data folder may not be backed up. So for backed up purposes, I highly recommend you find out where your files are saved and then back them up manually yourself. That is probably the safest way. You can have home screen widgets, and these are really basic features. And there is circle to search. Just tap this bar for a split second or so, and then you can, well, circle to search. For the app switcher, you can see many apps at a glance. Let's talk about the performance of this tablet, which is actually quite good with the Snapdragon 7S Gen 4 processor. So I have just launched Genshin Impact, and this is how much time it will take to launch a huge app. And usually on budget tablets, it will take a very long time to launch this game. So with this tablet, the loading speed is actually quite decent. Let me load, checking for updates. The download speed for this tablet is actually quite fast. But I'm actually quite far away from my router and modem, so the download speed is affected. The download speed is about 1.5 gigabytes per minute for me. Now, if you are not playing huge games, you don't really have to worry about the loading time. And now it's compiling shaders, and this is quite slow. So usually on the more expensive and premium tablets, this process is noticeably faster. So even though the Snapdragon 7S Gen 4 processor in this tablet is almost 2 times more powerful than the MediaTek Helio G100 Ultra from the Redmi Pad 2 non-Pro tablet, the Snapdragon processor is still considered a mid-range processor. Anyway, you only have to do this once, so after this is done, you don't have to bother about this. Right, I am now in the game, so the visual quality looks good to me. The animation is smooth. Let me just run around. I do not see any lag or frame drops with the animation, so the gaming performance is actually quite good. And this is a 12.1-inch display, so it feels really immersive when you're playing games. Let's have a look at the graphics settings, and this is graphics quality medium, the third setting out of the 5, and this is actually considered quite good because usually for budget tablets it's either low or lowest, but here you can actually get medium, so that's quite decent. Yeah, so you can definitely play games with this tablet even at mid to, I would say, maybe high graphics settings. Yeah, no problems. The processor is good. I had purchased this tablet with only 6 gigs of RAM, and now there is only 2 gigs of RAM remaining, and that is with Genshin Impact among all the apps that I have here. So 6 gigs of RAM is actually sufficient for general use. I did not buy the model with 8 gigs of RAM because it's substantially more expensive compared to this model with just 6 gigs of RAM. But if I do want 8 gigs of RAM, I would go with the Redmi Pad 2 non-Pro. I don't mind the less powerful processor because I won't be playing games on my tablets. Let's talk about the pen. So this is the Redmi Smart Pen, which is sold separately. Here in Singapore, it's about 50 Singapore dollars, which is quite affordable. Build quality is quite solid, and here you can see the USB-C charging port. So there is an internal battery inside, and one very important thing you have to know about this pen is battery capacity for such pens, or pens with batteries inside, is quite small. So you do not want to leave the battery depleted for long periods of time because that can damage the battery. So if you're someone who does not use the pen often, I would highly recommend you set a calendar alarm to charge the pen at least once a month. This pen does not support magnetic charging, so you have to remember to charge the pen manually. This pen uses Bluetooth for connection. Just press either one of the buttons to wake the pen and Bluetooth pairing will start. And the next time you use the pen, just press the button once to power it on first. I like the matte textured body. This feels quite comfortable to hold in hand. The pen is not too heavy and not too light. There are 2 side buttons which may be customizable depending on the apps you use. There are already pre-programmed shortcuts for these 2 buttons. So if you press and hold this button that is nearer to the pen tip and tap on the display, this will open the Mi Canvas app and you can write something, and this will save the notes to Mi Canvas. If you press and hold the other button, this will open the screenshot app, and you can take a partial screenshot or take a whole screen screenshot. You can also write in text boxes. I cannot remember how many levels of pressure sensitivity that this pen has, but this pen actually has good pressure support. There is tilt sensitivity, but it doesn't work with this app Concepts, which happens to be my main drawing app. Tilt works fine with Sketchbook, but as mentioned earlier, pressure sensitivity doesn't work well here with the shoelace effect. This app is Krita, and I'm using the Pencil 5 tilted brush, and the cursor can actually follow the direction of the pen. But when I draw, the shading is on the opposite side. So I tried to reverse the shading in the settings, but I couldn't get it to work for some reason. Time for the line test, and the app that I'm using is Medibank Paint. And as you can see, this is able to capture my handwriting style quite accurately. So let's test the initial activation force. This is a thick brush, 69 pixels. And I'm going to draw a slow diagonal line. with minimal pressure. I'm going to draw this as slowly as I can. So as I draw these few lines, you can see there is this dot that starts at the start of the line. This is a deal breaker. So if you want to draw with a light touch, this is going to mess up your line art. This problem with the dots also happens with CSP. Now if you draw or write with heavy pressure, you are not going to see the dot. It's only when you draw with a light touch, that's when you will see the dot. And this app is Infinite Painter. This is actually not too bad, but you can still see the start of the line is, well, just as I was saying, it's not too bad. You can see the dot. Yeah, Infinite Painter has the problem. And this app is High Paint. So as I draw the thin lines, you can see they do not start with the dot. So when the pen performance is not good, usually I have to test it with more drawing apps to see which are the apps that actually work well with the pen. So the apps that work well with this pen are High Paint, Concepts, and IB's Paint X. Sketchbook and Krita have the shoelace effect. Clip Studio Paint, MediaBank Paint, Infinite Painter have the dot at the start of the line. If you try to draw without pressure, you can still get a line as long as the pen tip is in contact with the display. But sometimes the line may break like this. Let's look at how lines taper with MediaBank Paint. And this is quite good. It's able to taper smooth and sharply. Let's look at the line transition from thin to thick and back to thin. This is good. I can draw thin lines after drawing thick lines. Line width consistency looks good. I can maintain consistent line width by maintaining consistent pressure. Let's draw some dots. So you can also hear the tapping sound because of the hard plastic tip against the glass surface. So when I press down hard to draw the bigger dots, it's quite difficult. And also the dots, the size of the dots is not what I want. I want to draw like medium size like this, but I can't do so consistently. Let's look at cursor tracking or cursor misalignment. And usually for Android tablets, there should not be any issues with cursor misalignment because the cursor is always directly underneath the pen tip, even if you tilt the pen quite low. Oops, you can see there is a gap here. That's due to human error. Yeah, so I am able to join the lines without the lines overshooting or without gaps. Let's look at the latency performance. So with MediaBank Paint, there is noticeable latency. I can clearly see the line trying to catch up with the pen tip. Let's switch to another app, Concepts. For this app, the latency performance is better. The gap between the line and the pen tip is actually smaller. But as I draw, I can see the line appears in this choppy manner. But with MediaBank Paint, the line animation is actually quite smooth. It's just that there is more latency. But with Concepts, the line animation is more choppy. Anyway, latency is not really an issue when drawing because unless you are drawing long sweeping lines like this, chances are you may not notice the latency. And now let's talk about the drawing experience. So as mentioned earlier, the pen performance varies depending on the app you use. So you have to choose an app that works well with the pen. So I'm going to use Concepts. This is my main sketching app, and Concepts is actually quite a forgivable app in the sense that if you use a pen with lousy performance, sometimes you can actually still get pretty good drawing experience with this app. So I'm going to choose the watercolor B4 brush, and you know what, let me just continue drawing here on this side here. So 12.1 inch is a big size to work with, and you can use drawing apps with more user interface elements such as Medibank Paint if you don't mind the problem with the dot. So if you have one column of palette here, you still get a lot of space to work with. If you have another column, you still have, I would say, a decent amount of space to work with for drawing. This is how big the tablet is compared to an A5 size sketchbook. So if I overlay this sketchbook on the tablet, you can see the tablet is much taller. Let's have a quick sketch. Drawing with the tablet in landscape orientation. If I'm using this tablet in vertical orientation, I'll try to have the camera on the other side, because if I cover the camera, that will dim the display. Well, it just dim the display. So that is something you have to know if you want to draw with the tablet in portrait orientation. Okay, now the pressure support is actually quite good. It's just that with certain drawing apps, there is the issue with the dot and also the line taper. But pressure performance is actually quite decent with this app. So for casual drawing, the pen, I would say, still works quite well. And there is a lot, oops, accidentally pressed the side button. One nice thing about the side buttons is Redmi or Xiaomi has programmed the shortcuts to work only when you press and hold. So if I click the side buttons like this, it will actually not call up the Redmi shortcuts. But here I have customized the side button to call up the, what's this? To hide the UI and also to show the color wheel. Okay, let's continue. I can draw thin lines easily, even with a thick brush selected. So this will allow me to draw thin and thick lines quite easily so that I can create the line variation. Palm rejection mostly works well. Now for this app, I have set the finger action to move the canvas. If I set this to select, if I place my palm on the display, sometimes it will go into the select mode, which is what I do not want. So in this case, it's just better to set the finger action to move. So when I can move with my finger, it also means I will not introduce any straight strokes while drawing. Okay, so let's continue. I'll say this tablet is good enough for casual sketching. For this app concepts, usually I will try to, instead of drawing like this to get the tapered strokes, you can see that sometimes if I draw fast like this, the stroke will not taper that smoothly. So to get tapered strokes with this app, I have to rely on pressure. So I have to reduce the pressure to draw the thinner lines to get the stroke to taper. Okay, yeah, I can get really expressive lines with this app, with this pen. Oh, let me erase here. Oops. I cannot set the side button to erase because for some reason, there is no eraser that I can set to the two buttons. Yeah, it's strange. This app concept is really strange. The side button shortcuts will vary depending on whether it's Android or iPad or Windows. Okay. Yeah, I like the expressive lines. Occasionally, there will still be the double tap undo, but so far, so good. Maybe it's because I did not rest my palm on the display that often. So let me try and make a conscious effort to rest my palm on the display while drawing. This tablet is quite portable in the sense that you can bring this around easily. It's just 601 grams. But if you want to hold this tablet in hand like this to sketch, this is considered heavy because most of the weight will go to the other side, so it's difficult to balance the tablet like this. It's easier if you hold it in portrait orientation because the weight is more concentrated and closer to the hand, but if you hold it like this, this is difficult. So if I am drawing with this tablet outdoors, I will have to put this down on my lap or on a table or on some surface. If I am not wrong, Xiaomi or Redmi actually has the matte glass option for this tablet in some countries. Here in Singapore, this is only sold with the glossy display, which I don't like. So when you are drawing on the display, the pen glides around a bit too easily for my personal preference. So this will take some time to, well, get used to. But it's not a big issue. Oops, there is one unintentional undo there due to palm rejection. Yeah, so drawing on glossy glass will take some time to, well, get used to. So if you want more precise control, it may be a bit difficult to get with this tablet due to how smooth the display is, how smooth the pen is on the display. Pen tips can be, replacement pen tips can be found easily on AliExpress and they are not too expensive. I guess you may be able to find matte screen protectors for this tablet as well, just to get that extra tactile experience when drawing. Yeah, for quick sketches like this, I think it works fine. I don't need to be that precise when sketching. Yeah, this actually works fine. For writing, this is actually quite good because this allows you, the smoother glass surface actually allows you to write much faster. So for writing, smooth is good. But for drawing, generally speaking, you want more resistance, more friction, so that you can get a more tactile drawing experience. And you can control the pen more easily as well. Oops, accidentally hit that. Okay, so far so good. I am able to get the lines to appear exactly how I want them to appear. No issues with line pressure. Tilt, unfortunately, doesn't work here with this app, even though this app actually supports tilt. So I'm not sure why. But usually for concepts or for most other Android tablets with pen support that also support tilt, tilt should work. But in this case, it doesn't for some reason. Okay, it's drawing the background is quite tedious. Let me try and draw some chopsticks with straight lines here. So you can see the lines are not completely straight. Oops, accidentally pressed and held the side button, which activates the screenshot mode, which can be quite irritating. And there is no way to deactivate or disable the Redmi shortcuts. I think this looks fine, as in the lines seem to be straight enough, even though there is slight wobble. So for a casual sketch like this, the tablet works fine, no issues. So the main thing that actually affects my drawing experience is with how smooth the pen tip is on the glass surface. It's a bit too smooth for my personal preference. So maybe having a screen protector, a matte screen protector, may help. Okay, coloring this is going to be challenging. Right, so this sketch is almost done. I just need to put in some finishing touches. Have chairs for these two guys here. For this sketch, palm rejection worked quite well. Palm rejection is not a problem for when I sketch this. I need to make this text here thicker, so let's delete that and go back to the pen. Okay, I think it looks slightly better. The main thing you have to know about this tablet and pen is it's not going to be that easy to get precise control because of how smooth the pen tip is on glass and also due to the pen performance. The last thing I want to say is the battery life of this tablet is so good that I really can't be bothered to do the battery drain test. Yep, so this is my review of the Redmi Pad 2 Pro. It's a good tablet, just note the downsides or limitations with the pen performance when it comes to drawing. Thanks for watching. I hope this review is useful. See you guys in the next video. Bye.